So please give her a warm welcome.
Okay. Awesome. The enemy is not going to silence me today, okay? Hi, guys. I'm Carm. I don't know if it's going to say Carmella, but everybody calls me Carm. And I had on heels today, but I just ditched them because I was like, yeah, we just going to leave those over there. So, yes, I was born and raised in West Akron, and my husband is not up there because I don't have one yet. But my mom is here, and I'm representing for all the single ladies out there, So, amen to that, You can have your grandsons call me, But yeah, so my mom is here and a lot of my really good friends, and I'm super thankful for just like the love and support that they've shown me. So I got the call to speak at Akron on Purpose like weeks ago, and I know a few other people had known for maybe like a year, close to a year or something, but I was having a conversation with my mom in my bedroom, and she actually had asked me to speak at our family reunion, and I told her no. And I was like, no, in front of like 40 of our family members. And she was like, you need to stop shutting doors that the Lord gives you. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And I literally said out of my mouth, I don't like speaking in front of people. 30 minutes later, I got a call from Jessica Skinner, my friend, and she spoke last year. She has the shaved head, but this year she has like a little afro. And she was like, hey, I was praying about this conference I spoke at last year, and your name kept coming up. And I was like, are you kidding me, Lord? Like, I just said I don't speak in front of people, so totally a God thing that I'm here. So I'm like, Jesus, do your thing. When I was praying about what to talk to you guys about, the Lord specifically told me that I was going to share my testimony with anxiety. And I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with today in our world, so amen, I hope it blesses somebody. Let's see. So I've spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, like Kara was saying, and one of the things that I learned about elephants, you ever go to the zoo or to the circus, really, and see an elephant, and you wonder, like, how are they so well trained? Like, what keeps them from just, like, running away from the circus or running out of the tent? Well, when elephants are little itty-bitty babies, they put a rope around their neck if they're going to be trained for the circus, and they put a stake in the ground, and they realize after trying to move around that they can't go anywhere because there's this rope around their neck, and they keep them chained up like that for a really long time. As they get a little bit bigger, like the rope has to get bigger, the stake has to get bigger, but they keep this rope around their neck. And once again, they try to like move around and get away from it's a really small radius. They try to get away, but they realize after moving that they can't get away. As the elephant becomes an adult, they put this rope around the elephant's neck, but you'll notice that it's not tied to any stake in the ground. But at this point, the elephant has already learned that it can't go anywhere. And so it's literally just merely the rope around its neck and the idea that I'm in bondage. Like, I can only move so far. And I honestly feel like that's how anxiety is for some of us. It's like we've been set free by Jesus. We can go somewhere. We can move beyond the bondage that we've been in. But because Satan has had his hands on our neck for so long, we tend to think like, this is all that I can do. This is as far as I can go. A few years ago, I was in like just a particularly busy season of my life, and I remember the Lord warning me like, yo, you need to like slow down. Like, you need to surrender some things to me. You need to focus on me. You need to give me your heart and everything. And, like the average woman, I was striving and trying to do all the things. And honestly, I was really playing God in a lot of ways because I just wasn't trusting him with his plan for my life. And I know for some of us in this room right now, we're kind of in that season too. The Lord might be like kind of pricking your heart a little bit, saying, I want you to slow down. I want you to surrender some things to me. I want you to give me your heart or this relationship or whatever. But it's really scary to do those things. And I just didn't slow down. And I remember experiencing my first panic attack in that season of my life. I was actually at a really good friend's house, and we were like having a sleepover just because some of my friends were in town. And I woke up in the middle of the night. My heart was racing. I was hot, couldn't catch my breath. And if you ever experienced a panic attack, you know they're like the scariest things ever. Like you think you're gonna die. I woke up one of my friends to have her pray for me, and she prayed for me, but like it just didn't subside, so they ended up having to call the ambulance and everything. But later on that night, I went home with my parents, and I remember thinking like, man, that was awful. I never want to experience that again. But I had no clue that that was just the beginning to the darkest season of my life. Fast forward a little bit, on the first day of the year, my grandfather passes away. And because I was already in such an unhealthy place, I couldn't, healthfully process that grief. And then towards the end of that month, which is still January, I went through a really traumatic experience with a baby in my family who got severely abused. And I was one of the people to take her to the hospital. And so I'm literally watching this infant arrest over and over and over again. Her heart stops, she stops breathing, and the doctors are rushing in and trying to save her life. And I felt like the little bit of me that was still like raveled up or like I was trying to hold together came undone. And so after those experiences, I started to have massive panic attack after massive panic attack. And when I say one after another, I would sometimes have 2 in one night. And in the span of just a few months, I probably had like maybe 40 or 50 panic attacks in just a few months. And I realized like I couldn't eat right, I couldn't sleep right, and my thoughts would like constantly race. I was so worried. And at the time that all of this is going on, I'm like begging God for it to stop, but he just didn't immediately take it away. So I'm like, okay, Lord, like, I don't really know what to do. So of course, when we're in a weak position, what happens? The enemy comes. I mean, he also comes when we're strong, but especially just when we're especially vulnerable. And so the thoughts began as, okay, does God really even hear you? Like, you're asking him to heal you of this thing. He's not taking it away. And those thoughts eventually turned into, okay, is God even real? Like, is he there at all? And one thing I realized about our generation, it is definitely an attack on young believers for them to either be persuaded that Jesus isn't the only way or that he isn't real. And those were the thoughts that would really pummel my mind. But I remember just being like, okay, God, like, I need you in this moment. In all of these moments, I need you to do something. And I felt like I was honestly almost being consumed by what was happening. Lamentations 3:22, though, says, it is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed because his compassions fail not. At times, I was tempted by the enemy to just give up. Like, this is it. Like, just give up. I was not, like Kara said, I've gone to 17 countries. I was not the vibrant, passionate, calm that my friends know. And, like, all I wanted to do was be at home. And if you really think about the call on my life versus where the enemy was trying to take me to, like, there was no option for me to get on a plane and go to anybody's jungle to love people for Jesus. Like, I just wanted to be at home. And I would venture really to believe that the very places that the enemy attacks us is because they are attached so closely to our purpose. And that's why you really have to pay attention to like those little subtleties that he really tries to throw at us. And, I'm like, Lord, there's nothing I can do. I might give up. And so a lot of times, I think we go to the Lord and ask him to help us, but there's still kind of something that we can do, like, maybe we can try to be more patient or something, but I was literally in a position where I was like, Lord, I can't do anything about this. So as time goes on, and I'm just kind of having like functional anxiety, I hear about this Bethel concert that's happening. And I don't know if you guys know, I'm sure a lot of you guys probably know who Bethel is, but I had heard that people go to their concerts and they get healed. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, like, I'm going to this concert and I'm getting healed. Like, at this point, my life is just unraveling, and there was like I said, I wasn't myself, and I couldn't do anything about it. So We traveled to Columbus, me and some of my closest friends. And Stephanie Greskinger is like one of the main singers for Bethel, and she wasn't supposed to be there that day actually. So we get there and I'm super hyped to hear like all the other people. And you know, one thing about anxiety, like when it like grips you, it's almost like being in a straitjacket. Like you don't want to be around people, but I was like, I'm gonna press and I'm gonna go to this concert. So I get to the concert and there's like thousands of people there. We like climb our way to the top of the stadium. And I'm like, okay, Lord, like, please don't let me have a panic attack here in front of all these people. I'm sitting down while worship is happening, and then all of a sudden, Stephanie Greskinger walks out on stage, like in the middle of somebody's set, and she's like, hey guys, wasn't supposed to be here, but we're like praying that the Lord heals my dad from cancer, and she's from Ohio, so she starts singing that song, King of My Heart, which actually the worship team sung earlier. And at the end of that song, there is a part, there's like, they break out into spontaneous worship, and there's a part of that song that literally says, when the night is holding on to me, God is holding on, and his grip is tighter. And I like knew that she was singing that song to me. Like, if I had not walked through the darkness that I did, I would not have believed that a believer could walk through so much darkness and come out on the other side. But as she began to sing these words, the elephant that had been sitting on my chest literally lifted. And like, I've never felt that again. I haven't had a panic attack since. So the Lord, he really brought deliverance to me in a moment. And I'm not saying that I was completely healed from anxiety. Like, healing had to take place over time. I still go to Christian counseling and everything, but in that moment there was deliverance, and it was like that spiritual stronghold that was over my life was gone. And so after the concert was over, I go back home and I'm like, okay, Lord, like, I still have to get rid of all the other things that are going on in my heart and mind, you know, like I'm still pretty anxious at times, even though things had gotten a lot better. So I remember one day I was sitting on my bed and I heard the Lord say, quit your job. And I was like, that is not the Lord. I am not quitting my job, Lord. I like this job. And, you know, being a missionary for most of my 20s, I, you know, had worked little odd jobs like Target and stuff like that, which are great. But I had finally got like a big kid's job, you know. And so I heard, quit your job. And I was like, I'm not quitting my job. That's not the Lord. And he said again, quit your job. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, all right. Are you going to tell me what we're going to do if I quit my job? Nothing. And so it was a Friday, and it wasn't an office day. So I didn't have to go into the office. And my office was in Cleveland. I live in Akron. And I was like, okay, Lord, I'll go in there on Monday and I'll quit my job. And he was like, no, I want you to quit your job right now. And I'm like, right now? Like, you can't give me the weekend? And he was like, I want you to type up a really nice letter to your boss, attach it to an email, and put in your 2 weeks notice. So I was like, okay, like, I'm just going to say yes. And so type up this letter, send it to my boss, put in my 2 weeks notice. That very night, I was scrolling on Facebook, and one of my old mentors was like, hey, we're looking for people to like come lead mission trips for us this summer, and this is the date that you have to be there if you can do it, because I guess they at this time they were really desperate. It was getting close to the time, and the day I needed to be there was literally the day after my 2 weeks notice ended, or the day that they wanted someone there. So I'm like, okay, Lord, and I start to feel that little God prick. And I'm just like, but I can't do that. Like, I'm not that calm anymore. I don't go anymore. Sorry, y'all, ugly cry. So if these tears fall, it's a wrap. So, but I'm like, I'm not that calm anymore. Like, I don't go anymore. I stay at home because home feels a lot safer than, you know, going out and getting on a plane. But I knew it was the Lord. And so I messaged him and I was like, okay, here's the thing. My job ends the day before. I could probably be there close to that time. He's like, please come. We need you. And so I had signed up to go, and I actually got really afraid, and I said no. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do it. And I would have needed to be there in June. A week later, because I'm thinking like, okay, I got out of that one, but I still don't have a job, so what's up? And a week later, they gave me a call again. They were like, look, we really think you're supposed to be here, so if you can't come in June, come in July. And I was like, okay, Lord, like, you win. I'm going to say yes to what you're asking me to do. And so I was like, but God, you have to still heal me. Like, I still need healing to take place. I'm still really afraid of so many things. I still have this anxiety going on in my life. And he was like, okay, we'll start small. And so I went to visit a friend in New York City just for a weekend. And it was my first time away from home in months. And I remember the first night I was there, waking up in the middle of the night and being so afraid and so anxious. And I just wanted to get in the car and go home. But I remember the Lord reminded me, like, if you get in the car right now and go home, you'll be reminding yourself that I'm not enough and that I can't keep you. And I was like, okay, Lord. And so as hard as it was, I stayed. And then a couple weeks later, I went to visit a friend for a week, and I made it through that. And so the time rolls around, and I get on this plane, and I go to Peru to lead 9 young women through a missions trip there. And we just, like, stayed with a local, mama in the community, and she, like, cooked us food, and we, like, worked at the local church and took care of the kids. And just, like, the Lord just did some mind-blowingly amazing things in that time. And I remember just little by little, he began to take away that anxiety with every little yes, because it was a lot of little yeses that I had to say. Some big yeses, but a lot of it was like, okay, I want you to get up today and do this. You know, I want you to surrender that. I want you to get on the plane and go. And so I get there, and I thought I was leaving home for 30 days, but plot twist from the Lord, I actually ended up being gone for 6 months, and I didn't even come back home to Akron. I, flew to Atlanta for a day, and they asked me to lead a 5-month trip through Southeast Asia. And I'm like, Lord, you asking a lot. Like, I said 30 days. But he's like, can you say yes one more time? Or not one more time, but for that season, one more time. And I was like, okay, Lord. And so I went and did that, and it was like over time the Lord just continued to remove those things from my heart, and he continued to remind me. It was just like with every day was a new milestone. With everything he brought me through was a new day for me to be reminded, like, fear and anxiety, they don't win. They have no precedence over Jesus and his power. And I was so thankful because I began to see the Lord restore who I was. And for so many women in this room, there's such an attack on your identity tonight or on today. And the enemy is really trying to stop you from being who God has called you to be. Maybe you don't believe that you're enough. Maybe you don't think that your pebble or your stone can cause a ripple, but that's such a lie. Like, I want to say God has beautiful, big things planned for you. And for some of you, it's just going to take that small yes that's going to lead to the bigger yeses. You might have to quit your job, or you might have to stay at your job. You might have to say yes, like Hannah, to having a baby and really being comfortable with becoming a mother, or yes, like me, and stay single for longer than you want to. But know that God has a beautiful plan in that. And I just want to leave you guys with one of the scriptures that I clung to the most in my season with anxiety. It's Psalms 94:19. When my anxious thoughts multiply within me, your comforts delight me. I stand here today, you guys, free. Like, I'm not on medication anymore. I'm still in Christian counseling. And yes, honey, go to therapy. Go to therapy, go to therapy. Take care of your mental. Like, it's so important. But I'm not on medication anymore, and the Lord has restored me to be the person who I am, who I've been called to be. And the freedom that he has given me is available to all of us tonight. If you just say one small yes, you'll cause a ripple. Thank you.